Welcome in, everybody. It's Ed the Trainer again to speak to you today about the UST Stand-alone exam. Many of you are very familiar with the UST, having already taken the exam. So today I want to speak mainly to those of you who've yet to sit for the test. Particularly here, guys, what does it mean if you've not yet taken this test? Many of you are probably aware that there's been a deadline established at the end of March 31st, that if you've not yet signed up for this exam, you'll no longer be eligible to take the standalone version of this test. Now, keep in mind that this is an enrollment deadline. So we'll speak more about the relevance of that terminology, the enrollment date, in just a few minutes. But let's take a quick peek now back at the content outline for the 25-question UST Standalone and illustrate how important it is, if you intend to get into this particular test, to sign up while the enrollment window is still open. Perhaps most importantly here is just to remember that this is a 25-question test. It frankly will take you about 20 minutes, maybe 30, to run through the test itself. Information for the test is drawn from 4 main areas, and we won't dive too deeply into these segments here. We want to really talk about the function of the test being delivered more so than the test itself. There is another tutorial that you can look up information within my site on how to prepare for the UST Standalone. Perhaps the most important thing to convey here is that if you are to miss the enrollment window for this 25-question test, you may have made your life much more difficult if you intend to seek a license in other states. And we'll talk about some scenarios that will be plainly obvious to you in just a couple of minutes. So you want to take this exam, but you're not quite sure what steps to take. What things should you consider as you're moving forward? Well, understand that there is an enrollment date initially that expires at the end of this month, March 31st. If you've not yet enrolled to take this exam by March 31st, it will become unavailable to you as a standalone exam. But remember, this enrollment date does not mean you have to take the exam by the end of March. What happens when you enroll is that there is a testing window that opens up for you. This window is 180 days or 6 months. So, frankly, what that means is if you enroll by the end of this month, March 31st, you have 6 months within which to complete taking and passing this exam. There is, however, another consideration to think about as well. Even if you're not intending to be licensed in any number of these 39 states that the UST exam currently covers, it's a $33 test. And once you've passed the test, there is a 5-year window that now opens up in general terms under the SAFE Act requirements that will allow you for these test exams to be valid for that length of time. So if a year down the road, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, up to 5 years, you decide that you want to get licensed in any of the states the UST covers, you're covered for your testing requirements. Again, I mentioned to you, it is $33. So even if you have to pay it yourself out of your own pocket, it's essentially cheap insurance for your future business plans to open up a couple of key windows for you. A testing window after you've enrolled, and then a validation window for the test for 5 years after you've taken and passed this test. So let me take a minute here to circle back and touch back upon what I alluded to a little bit earlier, in that your testing scenarios may become much more difficult in the future should you not take advantage of this opportunity to enroll in the UST. For many of you out there, I want you to think about how difficult it was for you to pass the 100-question federal exam a handful of years ago when you first began the testing process. Now, imagine that if you were seeking licensure in any of the single states that have adopted the UST and you didn't take advantage of the standalone test, you're now required to take the full-on federal version, including the UST portion, the 25 questions, in addition to the full-on federal exam, that's a 125 question test into the future that you'll be required to take and pass if you're seeking licensure in any of these states that have adopted the UST format. You heard that correctly. If you're seeking licensure in a state that has adopted the UST, you'll be required to take the full-on federal exam and pass it to get licensed in that state. What's more is there are a handful of state regulators that have intimated that if you take the full-on federal exam again to get licensed in their state and fail it, they may actually question your overall licensure status and seek to have your license invalidated overall. Now, before you panic about the idea of taking the federal exam again and possibly failing it and losing your license overall, just keep in mind that state regulators have yet together, collectively, issue guidance about exactly what's going to happen down the road in the future in the event that someone who's already licensed fails the federal exam in an attempt to get a singular state license. To me, the mere fact that a handful of these state regulators are even bringing that idea up is reason enough to go ahead and just sign up and get the UST Stand-alone taken care of while it's still available. Now, while the last several minutes is focused on the details and timeframes of the expiration of the UST Stand-alone, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention to you that there are more resources and tools available at edthetrainer.com or on my Facebook page or YouTube channel if you care to check in there. Hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for tuning into our channel.